Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to another installment of the APB Recap. Whew, this is a long one, and for a good reason. We got a big hoopla to discuss. A classic hoopla, one that reminds me of the good old days of this channel. Hello, Fire Emblem Localization. We talk about you. Again. Fire Emblem Engage is the latest installment in the mainline Fire Emblem series after Three Houses, which was one of my favorite games of 2019. But despite all of that, I'm not really excited for this game. Engage, from what I've seen, receives a rather mixed review. The consensus said that it's not as good as Three Houses or Awakening, and some even say that it's not as good as Fates. And that's why I decided to try out this game first. As I said many times before, if it's on the Switch, it's on the PC. Now, I haven't played it in full, but I can say for sure that my first impressions left me bored and unimpressed. There's no better way to kill my interest in a game than making your playable character some divine chosen one with ungodly amounts of power that everyone praises. I don't like that. I want Robin and Byleth back. At least they started off normal before they eventually become special. They have this mechanic where you can call off the personas, emblems of the previous Fire Emblem characters to assist you in battle. Sorry about the Persona comparison, but seriously, how can I not think of Persona? I mean, a lot of the Persona demons are heroes of all times, and the emblems are the heroes of old Fire Emblem games. Except this time, they can actually talk and interact with the characters. The funniest one that I saw being Edelgard praising your character for not abusing your authority. Yeah, let's just completely forget the entirety of the second half of Three Houses where she does exactly that. That never happens. I can spend more time talking about the game itself, but I need to stay focused. We're talking about the localization. There seems to be quite a lot of odd localization changes within the game, and the first one that I talk about on stream was a change with Anna's support conversation. But boy, ever since last week's stream, there are lots and lots of stuff that people found, and there's a recurring trend. For a game calling itself Engage, it's incredibly shy of having its characters actually engage. For context, Fire Emblem has this mechanic where you can unlock conversations to strengthen the bond between two characters to improve their relationships and stats. The characters that can be paired tend to be random except for the main character. The main character gets almost everyone. Main character privilege, I suppose. The deeper the bond, the better their stats. The support ranks are classified from C, B, A, and finally S, which is the equivalent of romance, and a lot of times, straight up marriage. This is basically similar to Persona's social link, but in my opinion, almost better in every way. Fire Emblem Awakening allows you to become a Cupid and pairs characters however you like. You can pair these characters all the way up to the S ranks, which is not a thing in Persona. You cannot pair, for example, Ryuji and An. They do not have their own dedicated social link scenes together. There are scenes where they are together in the main character social link, but not with just them together. Not only that, but Awakening also lets you see the sons and daughters of the characters that you paired. This feature makes a return in Three Houses, but only your main character gets to have S rank. The rest only gets A rank, so you can't be a Cupid anymore. You can only pair your main character, and the other characters got paired randomly in the ending. And unfortunately, you don't get to see your babies, and in my opinion, that kind of sucks. So where's the hoopla in Engage? Well, to get an S rank for a character, your player character needs to give a ring to the other character that you want to have an S rank with. Anna, who is a recurring character in Fire Emblem and who used to be an adult, is portrayed as a kid here. You can give the ring to her and declare her as your waifu, even though she's, well, 11. And that's why the English version of the game changes it so that instead of it being explicitly romance, it's not romance at all. It's just business partnership. A business partnership that uses a ring to signify the partnership instead of, a written contract. The Japanese version still keeps the romance and also versions other than English, which is weird if you're playing with the Japanese audio and the English sub says something completely different. There. That's the hoopla. That's what a lot of people are angry about. And it turns out that she's not the only one. There are lots of other examples of S ranks being turned into just friendships in the localization. What do I think of this? Well, I also think it's really stupid, but for a different reason. Most people are angry that the localizers are inserting their own stuff to the mix and changing dialogues from the original Japanese. I, on the other hand, am not angry. I am amused. Because they didn't censor enough, and it leads to some really funny implications. In order for you to get S rank, you need your character to give your ring to someone. Your character can give that ring to many other romantic options, including Anna, an 11-year-old. You can give a ring to an 11-year-old as a business partnership pact of some sort. The game still lets you do that. The game still lets you give a ring to an 11-year-old. But don't worry guys, it's perfectly fine because it's a promise ring. It's a business partnership ring. Completely platonic. I swear. The romance is still there. It's still there by the virtue of the characters' actions and by the visuals being shown into the game. I mean, if you just watch the actual S-rank scenes of the characters and even the character portraits of the S-rank scenes, it's still there. I mean, yes, the dialogue says that it's business partnership, but you can tell through the body language, to the character expression, to pretty much everything else other than the dialogue that it's romance. If you watch the S-rank scene, it's available on YouTube, you can see the characters' emotions, body language, the end screen portrait art, everything. If you remove the dialogues completely, I wouldn't blame you if you think that your main character is proposing to an 11-year-old. Just because the dialogue says that they're partners doesn't mean that they're just platonic partners. This is basically the localizers going, actually, the dialogue says that they're just partners, so it's okay if you commit yourself to this 11-year-old and tell people that you're just partners. I'm sure a lot of people will believe that. Maybe there's an in-game lore in this specific game that says that a ring can be a sign of platonic promise rather than just marriage, but previous Fire Emblem games like Awakening and Three Houses uses ring to declare a romantic commitment. And even if there's a lore that says that rings can also be platonic, then the lore is really stupid because people would be confused by the ring. You could have used literally any other methods or items as a declaration of platonic promise, and considering Anna being a merchant and all, she can use, oh, I don't know, a freaking legal contract. Now, let's say your main character doesn't give the ring. Let's say that it's just a verbal promise of partnership. Alright then, look at this from a pattern point of view. Previous Fire Emblem games are very clear on its rules. A rank for great friendship and S rank for romance. Some S rank romance even lead to your character having kids, so S rank throughout the series and among the fandom is synonymous with romancing someone for at least 99% of the characters. This game, however, is like, well, actually, S rank romance only applies to some, but not others. Some S rank options are just platonic or partners in nature, but hey, at least you can be gay now. So when you are presented with all of the waifus and husbandos in the game, and there are plenty of those, why would you S-rank an 11-year-old? I mean, doesn't that make you look sus? This localization basically justifies you S-ranking an 11-year-old. Don't worry, it's just partnership. It's not romantic at all. The dialogue says it's right there. See? Completely platonic. No traces of romance whatsoever. Except many Fire Emblem games before are very clear that S-rank means romance. The Japanese version of the game is still explicitly romance, and in order for you to commit to this S-rank relationship, you have to give a ring, which in the previous Fire Emblem games have been used to signify romance a lot of times. So let me get this straight to everyone who thinks that this is a localization win. This localization changes nothing. It covers up nothing. You can change the dialogues, but you cannot change the actions and the visuals. You cannot change the history of the previous games. At the end of the day, these characters are fictional. But if you don't believe that, and you're actually committed on not letting players to become lolicons, wouldn't it make sense if you just also remove the whole ability for you as the player character to romance that character? I mean, say what you want about Fates, at least they actually remove stuff. Still not a good thing, but at least they're committed to the censorship. These guys are not that committed with their censorship. Now they're just being lazy with their censorship. They didn't remove Jack's squad here. It's still there in plain view. And again, this isn't the only platonic S-rank character. There are other platonic S-rank supports, which absolutely boggles my mind because that just punishes the players who genuinely want to romance the characters in question. So the game is like, oh, you like this character romantically? You want to give them a marriage ring? That's too bad. We're just gonna partner zone you. And only in the English localization. The Japanese, completely romance, still romance, but the English localization, no. You're just partners or best friends. There's one very funny translation change in which a character asks the main character Alir, I don't know how to pronounce that, about their best friend, and somehow the main character says that it's a personal question. What kind of person would be shy about sharing who their best friend is? The Japanese translation makes sense because the character asks about the main character's type, as in romantic type, which is a more personal question. But now they change it to best friend, which which makes even less sense. Yes, the dialogue indicates that it's a platonic relationship, which is why Engage doesn't go so far as Awakening, because if this happens in Awakening, that S-rank declaration and partnership will look even dumber when the characters actually got married and have kids. Don't worry guys, we are just partners, non-romantic partners. Yes, we marry, yes, we have kids, but we are just completely platonic partners. Right. And this is why I think localizers should just give up on changing dialogues. I realize that as time goes on, there's more to a game or movie or anime than the dialogues. There's also the visual presentations or character actions, story events, anything that basically makes the dialogue changes completely pointless. I mean, what's the point of changing the dialogues to be one thing when we can clearly see the character's actions and the character's visuals and emotions right up there on the screen? Now, for the most part, dialogues don't really change much, but there are definitely some cases where the dialogues can mean a whole lot more if it's being changed into something else entirely. I'm not saying that dialogue changes are all entirely insignificant, and to me at least, a lot of the dialogue changes here doesn't really matter too much, because again, at the end of the day, you can see the character's visuals, you can see the character's actions. It just makes no sense that the character's actions do not match up with whatever the dialogues are talking about. But you know what? It's better that the localizers change the dialogues, and just the dialogues, rather than say the visuals, or worse, removing an entire feature like in Fates. At least with dialogue changes, they can be modded or interpreted in a different way, depending on the visuals or the characters' actions. You cannot mod the voice acting, but you can have the Japanese audio, so there's that. It's definitely a step above Fire Emblem Fates several years ago. It'd be much better if the whole thing is translated faithfully, but at least they didn't remove features, and the game is available on the usual Tortuga channels in case you don't want to spend your money on it. Though, putting all of the localization hoopla aside, going back to the game itself, again, from what I've seen, people's reception on the game has been a mixed bag. Some negative, some positive. Mostly, they're on the middle side. It's either just okay or just meh. As someone who loves Awakening and Three Houses, I personally am not interested in this game, and even if the localization is fixed, I gave it a try and I just lost interest. The plot doesn't interest me, the waifus and husbandos are underwhelming, the writing is not as good as the previous games, it's just not particularly engaging to me, no pun intended. The fact that they have to bring the previous Fire Emblem heroes to support this game is an indication that the game can't stand on its own merits. What I love with Three Houses and Awakening is that they're completely standalone. They don't need the previous games to back them up, aside from the DLC characters aside, but even then, they're not super important for the story. Even if they titled the game just Awakening or just Three Houses, they would still be great games. This game, however, doesn't stand alone at all. I mean, granted, you don't have to play the previous games to know who the characters are, but why would you have them there to begin with? If they're not there, would the story still be good? Also, not helping were the bizarre character designs. I mean, Alir, the main protagonist, is called Colgate-chan for a reason. But hey, at least they are voiced, which is infinitely better than Three Houses in that regard. But Awakening is still better because Robin actually has a character of his or her own. So I'm definitely not gonna buy this game because this game is just not really that interesting. Not because of the localization, I can sort of tolerate that, but even if I tolerate all of that, the game as a whole is just not really that interesting to me. It does have one really funny clip that I'll be using for my future streams. And that's our first hoopla for today. Long hoopla and a classic hoopla at that. Takes me back to 2016 where I covered this stuff. If this is your first time coming here, this is the APB recap where I recap most of the hooplas that I discussed last week on a separate stream channel. Link down below. Go subscribe. That's where I make most of my content these days. And from this point on, we're done talking about Fire Emblem and we're gonna continue talking about other hooplas. And there are loads and loads of other hooplas last week. There are lots and lots of green flags and red flags that a lot of you people need to watch out in regards to dating men and women. Thankfully, there's a community of women that has prepared us a list of red flags for men. Let's discuss them one by one, shall we? Short. I mean, I don't know what women define as short. I heard that everyone under 6 foot is short, which unfortunately puts me at a disadvantage because I'm only an inch shorter. But thankfully, I am not in the market for women. And even if I am, my counteroffer is have them to have D cups. Has a desktop PC, so not a laptop then. I'm saved. No or inactive social media. Is it okay if I have some active social media but lots of inactive social media? Laughs at disabled people. But what if they make jokes about themselves? Am I not supposed to laugh at them? Isn't that more disrespectful? I'm gonna fill them up anyway because people's standards are really stupid these days. Racist! I'm not sure what classifies you to be one, but okay, I'll fill that up because everything is racist these days, I guess. Hyper-political. And you know what? I agree on this one being a red flag, but that also applies to you. Rarely goes outside. That depends on how you define rarely. I only go outside to buy food and groceries. Is that a red flag? Yeah, I'll fill that one up anyway. Spends more than 2 hours on computers. Well, considering that it's my job, I have to. Poor hygiene. That I also agree with being a red flag, but thankfully my hygiene is at least better than poor. I still shower twice a day. You would be surprised at the amount of people that actually don't shower twice a day. No Netflix subscription. Lady, I do not need a Netflix subscription. Virgin. I guess because men being a virgin means they don't have good luck with women and therefore that's a bad thing. But I'm not sure why that's a bad thing. Well, as for me, I'll fill that one up for your purpose because I technically still am virgin, unless you count e-sex as not being virgin. Watches documentaries. Okay, first off, how is that a bad thing? And second, do long YouTube videos count as documentaries? Sexist. Well, I guess because I'm a guy, that means I am sexist by that virtue alone. Fine, I'll check that. Live with parents. I don't. We moved to a different house for a reason. There's just not enough space for us. I mean, for God's sake, this room is already pretty stuffed with a lot of stuff. It's definitely not to impress people, so don't move out from your parents' home just to impress people. Does drugs. Well, thankfully, I don't like drugs, and I don't like smoking and drinking either. I'd rather be addicted to porn than masturbation. Speaking of which, masturbates daily. Yes. Yes.
Yes! 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 Yes!
Android/dumb phone. But that's the correct choice though. Apple's ecosystem is terrible. I said this as someone who has a MacBook and an old iPhone. This used to be my sister. This also used to be my sister. I tried them. They suck. Actually, the MacBook is okay, but even then, not really used to it. And I can say for sure that this thing is not worth the price of admission. There are definitely loads and loads of laptops out there that are much cheaper and gives you better specs and can actually let you to play games compared to this. Also, those laptops tend to have Windows, which means that a lot of pirated stuff can be easily installed there. And I mean, you can technically speaking install Windows in a MacBook, and there are a bunch of stuff that are pirated that are compatible with Mac, but still. No car. I mean, yes, I do have a car. I recently got it fixed. Not under my name, but it's mine regardless. What? You want a Bugatti? Makes less than $30,000 a year. We don't count salaries on a yearly basis here. We count them monthly. So $30,000 a year is about $2,500 a month. I only make a tenth of that at best. Not sure why you want a lot more than that, especially when you're not contributing to the table. Weird king / sexual depravity. Depravity. Define weird. You know what? I'll check that one out just for your sake. Lots of free time. That's really not possible with a $3,000 a year salary here, let alone $30,000 salary a year. So this requirement is kind of redundant. Has a picture with guns. I love my guns. You shut up. Overweight / underweight. Well, that standard applies to you too. I'm technically speaking overweight. I'm about 5 kilograms heavier than my ideal, which is about, what, 11, 12 pounds than my ideal, but that's it. Religious. I don't see how that's a bad thing. At least it's not extremely religious. Visible trash pile in room. My bed's a little messy, but aside from that, not much. So there's the bingo, and unfortunately, I don't get the bingo, but I do check several boxes. I guess if you play the game yourself and you do get it, you'll have less chance of scoring women. Though if these are your standards, ladies, we might as well look for somewhere else. There are lots and lots of tutorials online. Finding the one that's right for you can be pretty difficult. This person takes finding the right tutorial into the next level. I was on YouTube looking for an explanation of IPv4 and IPv6 and couldn't find any from black people.
Do you have any books written by black people?
I'm sorry, what? Who cares about the race of the person teaching? You just want to know the material. Why is this under consideration? I started looking for stuff covered in CompTIA+, and there's a notable lack of black people. And who are you going to blame for that? It's either the institution or black people. But this is utterly freaking irrelevant in the grand scheme of things. You're basically suggesting that you cannot learn computers unless it's from someone with the same skin color, which is absurd because I learn more from YouTube videos by white people than I do from my fellow Indonesians. And my knowledge is incredibly valuable in the family, and even to some of you guys. It's the knowledge that's valuable, not the teacher's freaking skin color. Get your racism out of the freaking window.
You're racist!
A while back, Disney and Aniplex released Twisted Wonderland, a mobile game featuring Disney villains as cute and hot anime boys. Seriously, these anime boys are supposed to represent Disney villains. If you want to have a good laugh, look them up and look who their spirits are. Although, depending on your prosperity of pretty anime boys, that laugh might turn into genuine horniness, so proceed with caution. Oh, and those aren't the only characters that got turned into cute boys. It's a really bizarre concept for a game, but it is an otome mobile game, so it is to be expected. But at least with mobile otome games, I don't expect them to be super short. Like, seriously, a lot of otome games that I played are really freaking short. And by the way, this whole thing will have an anime adaptation on Disney+, so keep an eye on it if you're interested. Anyway, there's an outrage for this game in current year by the boomers. For some reason. Discern the MO. If you think Disney backs this to simply provide on-trend entertainment, you're kidding yourself. This is a social programming / manipulation tool, not a free game. Much like how the villain films readaptations aren't just movies. Okay, granted, the villain film readaptations aren't great. Maleficent was okay at best, and Cruella...
that's no good.
Okay, it's a mobile game, therefore it's not really free. But how can you say that it's some social programming or manipulation tool? That's just absurd. That's some tinfoil hat crap right there. Wow, Disney just going ahead and leaning heavy on the idea of sexually exploiting children and grooming them? I mean, if you stretch your definition of sexual exploitation, yes, they do, I guess. But this game is not a good example to prove that point. I'd argue Turning Red is a better example to prove this. Thank you for using your marketing power to propagate the dysphoria so endeared by the pedos. Oh, you're one of those people. You're one of those all LGBT people are groomers or pedos and all of that. Guys, just because LGBT groomers exist doesn't mean that every LGBT person is a groomer. In the same way, just because bigoted gamers exist doesn't mean that every gamer is a bigot. If you're going to generalize something, at least make the generalization more than 5% accurate. Twisted sounds about right. Disney's airing their Bible Black and opening a... Oh my god, Bible Black? How the hell did I miss this hentai joke when I was on stream? The Ukraine-Russia crisis is still going on, and I'm not really paying attention to the whole thing, to be honest. If you are, good for you, but I don't. I do know that a lot of people are, and for some of those who are quite militant with their beliefs, they got rather crazy. To the point where they paint all Russian citizens as evil incarnate. In 2023, Games Workshop plans to release 2 AAA games in Warhammer 40k setting. Space Marine 2, made in Russia by Saber Games, published by genocide supporter Focus. Whoa, 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 hold on a second. They're genocide supporters by the virtue that they're Russians and develop games. Jeez.
Okay, I'm going to invade Russia.
Rogue Trader, made by Kremlin-founded Allcat. Please spread the word and boycott these games. Jeez, you wrote in all caps, so I know you're serious. But the thing is, not everyone is convinced of this matter. When another poster made a post talking about a game called Atomic Hearts, which was developed by a Russian-based studio, this person is really mad that a bunch of Reddit comments are disagreeing with them. Money spending making video games is money spent not building missiles. That's another example of how the logic of these gamers work. Yeah, there's no taxes paid in Russia. Russia's shareholders will not receive a part of the income. Nope. So by this metric, every Russian is guilty because they are obligated to pay taxes, which will be used to fund the war. So every citizen is responsible for the war. You do realize that this sort of thing sounds like a justification for genocide, right?
Okay, I'm going to invade Russia.
Separate art from the artist. Separate Russia from war and genocide, you mean? And you expect to be able to do that by telling people to not buy this game. How is not buying this game gonna separate these two countries from the freaking war? Ukrainians asking to boycott a game and company funded by the government that commits genocide against their nations. No, you're asking to boycott a game made by people who just so happen to be a citizen of a government that is at war with your nation. Innocent people that you call guilty by the virtue that they pay taxes. Seriously, you're only a couple of steps of bombing these guys. Why are you telling me these horrible details? I don't care that children are dying. Leave me alone and let me play the game. Yes. Yes. Unironically, yes. Sorry, but you're not gonna guilt me to fight for your cause if your method is garbage. Your method is garbage. Heck, even if the method is good, I still wouldn't fight for your cause because I'm barely struggling on my own. Not my problem. Rockets falling, people dying, not my problem. Yes. Yes. Yes.
I missed the part where that's my problem.
Yes, it is not our problem. We are not capable of helping everybody in our lives, and we certainly cannot help the people of Ukraine by boycotting this game. There are certainly much better ways to help people out there compared to doing this. In case you missed it, I endorse piracy. I don't like corporations that screw their customers. Whether or not it's moral is up to your opinion. That doesn't mean I can't disagree with it, but hey, let's disagree with it. No, piracy is always immoral. I don't care what you think of the company. If they're greedy or whatever, it belongs to them. Ah, great. So you don't care if companies screw over customers. So you don't care if a company like Steam or Epic went out of business and just steal people's whole library. You don't care if someone bought a movie from a streaming service and the movie got pulled for copyright reasons. Good to know. You stealing it is not righting some perceived wrong. It's just stealing. Streaming service has movie, you buy movie taken down for copyright, you don't get the movie. Streaming service doesn't refund. That's not perceived wrong. That's stealing. But piracy is always immoral, guys. Well, damn, I had muted this thread, so I didn't realize the commie brigade came in and got butthurt. And yet here you are in your reply going mentions. Also, pirates are commies now. In that case, rejoice, comrades. Hey, do whatever you like. I really don't care. Okay, now that's just a flat out lie. You clearly do care. Otherwise, you wouldn't make this tweet and unmute the thread. Saying one thing is different to doing another thing. You say you no lie, but your actions say you yes lie. And speaking of pirates, one of the topics that I find very funny that was raised last week was Zoomers and pirates. For the record, I teach Zoomers for a living, and let me tell you people about a couple of fun facts about them. They have no idea how a file system works. They have no idea how to upload files on Google Drive and share the links so that people can see them. I have to teach all of them one by one on how to do all of this. They have no idea how to screenshot their desktop, which again, I also have to teach them. And this is the generation that are supposed to be really good with computers. Well, I'm not being fair. There are some of them that are really good with their computers. Some can even pirate stuff without getting any viruses. It's not that hard, but hey, kudos to those guys. But the majority of them are clueless about computers as, well, boomers. This, ladies and gentlemen, is a generalization that I am absolutely happy to make because it's true. And with this statement is brought to them, they're molding and sieving. So is your argument just that Zoomers don't buy PCs that often anymore? Yes. There's like an equal amount of Mac users and Windows users in my class, with Windows being clearly superior for customization, piracy, and basically almost everything else actually. Granted, Windows is terrible, and I already talked about this a while back. I'm using Windows 11 right now because Microsoft pretty much forces me to update, but with a couple of tweaks from third-party tools, it's manageable. Not amazing, but manageable. I mean, okay, I guess that's probably true, but the ones that do own are as technically capable as everyone else. No, they're not. No, they're not. Like, what is the point of someone who only owns a console to know what torrenting is? You don't watch movies, TV series, anime? People don't just play games for entertainment. There are many types of entertainments out there. If you're just whining that Zoomers are buying PC less, then I guess that's fine. But don't sell it as some, like, intellectual or laziness thing. Yes, it is an intellectual and laziness thing. The moment you buy a MacBook, because it's the trendy computer, that's laziness. That's lack of intellectual and lack of basic research. I mean, I don't actually buy this MacBook. This used to be my sister's, and this was bought for her. The amount of people that actually need a MacBook are very, very small compared to the people that doesn't need a Mac, but buys them anyway. The real reason why Zoomers buy PC less is because it's just cheaper to get a phone, console, or Apple computer. Excuse me? What did you just say? Did you just say that it's cheaper to get an Apple computer over a PC?
What are you, a moron?
Guys, these are the kind of computer intellects that we are dealing with here. The Zoomers are so intelligent with computers that they call Apple computers cheaper than a PC. God, my freaking... It is so stupid that my hat actually fell down out of embarrassment. Getting any good Windows computer for cheap is really hard nowadays. Ladies and gentlemen, the computer literate Zoomer. They're so computer literate, they can't find any good Windows computer for cheap. But they can find Apple MacBooks for cheap.
What are you, a moron?
Do you know why we call you guys bad with computers? It's very self-evident. And that's all for the recap of today. Guys, this recap wouldn't have been possible without the help of all of you guys. Thank you so much. You guys are fantastic. If you want to see your names among these awesome people, then please check out the links down below and donate just $1 anywhere you like. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all next time.